In the topsy-turvy world of video games, nothing is certain. A major name in the title doesn't always translate to sales success. Just look at Superman 64. And even the most trusted brands in the industry deliver the occasional clunker. We can all agree that the Virtual Boy was a mass hallucination, right?
Virtual Boy, a 3D game for a 3D world. Wanna play?
On the flip side, sometimes the biggest hits come out of nowhere. And sometimes an anticipated flop turns out to be gaming's next big thing. Janky graphics, last-gen gameplay, and all. Final Fantasy XIV. Unlike the other games on this list, Final Fantasy XIV wasn't expected to flop, it did flop. Big time. When Square Enix released the second Final Fantasy MMORPG in 2010, it wasn't just a bad game, it was an unmitigated disaster. For instance, only 20 players could appear on screen. Servers crashed all the time. The user interface was an indecipherable mess, the quests weren't fun or interesting, and nobody, not critics, not fans, and not even the developers, really liked it. After a couple of months, Square Enix realized that the only way to salvage the game was to throw everything out and start from scratch. And that's exactly what Square Enix did. The company brought in Naoki Yoshida, a die-hard MMORPG fan, to right the ship. Yoshida completely restructured the Final Fantasy XIV team and slowly brought the game closer to other MMORPGs. The result? Final Fantasy XIV. A Realm Reborn isn't as unique as what came before. On the other hand, it's actually playable. We'll take it. Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn relaunched in 2013. It did much better. Critics showered the game with praise, especially its well-told and compelling storyline, which is just as good as the ones in Final Fantasy single-player installments. By 2016, Final Fantasy XIV had over 6 million players. It's gotten a few massive expansion packs. It is, by almost every metric, an unqualified success. Fortnite. Remember when Fortnite was a simple multiplayer survival game and not the biggest thing on the planet? No? Well, allow us to refresh your memory. For years, it seemed like Fortnite wasn't even going to come out. Epic announced Fortnite way back at Spike TV's Video Game Awards in 2011. Then it more or less vanished. When members of the press finally got their hands on the game, which Epic originally described as Minecraft meets Left 4 Dead, first impressions weren't exactly stellar. A 2015 preview from Ars Technica called Fortnite a big mishmash of genres that doesn't quite gel into a satisfying whole. And then when an early access version of Fortnite arrived in 2017, things didn't look much brighter. Polygon admired the amount of work that Epic had put into making Fortnite better, but admitted that they still weren't having any fun playing it.
It was just whatever we could piece together really super fast and then get out there. It was a mess at first.
And then Epic added the free-to-play Battle Royale mode, and everything changed. In fall 2017, Fortnite started riding the momentum of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Epic hasn't looked back since. In March 2018, Fortnite made Epic $25 million from its invite-only mobile iOS edition alone. Over 3 million people can be found playing Fortnite at any given time. Having fun now, Polygon? Epic sure is. All the way to the bank. Until Dawn. Initially interactive horror flick Until Dawn was supposed to be the answer to the question, why doesn't the PS Move support a single good game? You see, players were originally supposed to use the Move to control an in-game flashlight while exploring an abandoned cabin and making choices that affected the game's outcome. It was an interesting idea, but the problems were twofold. Not only were motion controls on their way out by 2012, but Until Dawn's first trailer looks low-tech, and it's dripping with cheese. Even after developer Supermassive Games brought in Hollywood talent and dropped the Move-based gameplay, nobody expected much.
Yo, explorers, you guys are gonna need the keys for the Love Shack.
Well, turns out everyone was wrong. Until Dawn sold significantly better than expected, launching an entire franchise. It's got both a VR-based FPS spin-off, Until Dawn Rush of Blood, and a prequel called The Inpatient. It's campy and cliché, sure, but that's half the fun of it. Forget the jump scares, the fact that Until Dawn is actually great might be the game's biggest surprise of all. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. When Ubisoft revealed Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, the internet wasn't exactly kind.
That's the most horrible thing I've ever heard.
Mario plus Rabbids was, for all intents and purposes, the very last game that anyone expected to see. Not only is Nintendo notoriously protective of its characters, but Ubisoft's mischievous and hyperactive mascots tend to be incredibly divisive. You either love them or you really don't. At first, nothing about Mario plus Rabbids made sense. Why was a selfie-obsessed Rabbid cosplaying as Princess Peach? Why was Mario packing heat? Naturally, the online reaction to the game was swift and furious. And yet somehow, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle succeeded. Instead of annoying players, the Rabbids were praised for providing new takes on Nintendo's classic characters. The grid-based battles were well executed, rivaling those of real-time strategy game XCOM. Mario plus Rabbids went on to become the best-selling Switch game made outside of Nintendo, and for good reason. It's wacky as hell, but at the end of the day, it just worked. Doom. No, we're not talking about the original Doom. id Software's 1993 PC game was super anticipated from the very beginning. In fact, people were so excited that when the game first released as a shareware title, id's servers couldn't handle all the traffic. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like id's planned soft reboot of the franchise was going to live up to Doom's legacy. 2016's Doom started production in 2008 as Doom 4, a heavily militarized take on the franchise that fans later nicknamed Call of Doom. 3 years later, id threw everything out, effectively rebooting their game and starting from scratch.
As a concept, I could see why they went there, because I would probably want to explore that too, if it wasn't a Doom game.
It took another 5 years for Doom to hit the market, and along the way, it failed to impress. The game's trailers were full of cheesy machismo, the multiplayer demo was a disaster, leading to a flood of negative Steam reviews. And critics didn't get review copies in advance, which is usually a bad sign. Well, surprise! Doom is good. Really good. Not only did Doom successfully recapture the original's charm, with fast-paced combat that's designed to keep you on your toes, but it sold well and landed a number of Game of the Year awards too. It wasn't a sure thing, but Doom is back and better and bloodier than ever.
You know they're demons, I know they're demons. We both want to shoot them in the face.
Pokémon. You know Pokémon, right? The franchise that sold over 300 million video games? The one that sparked 20 years worth of TV series and films and moved 23.6 billion trading cards? Well, here's a secret. Nintendo originally thought the idea was hot garbage. As creator Satoshi Tajiri tells the story, he originally came up with Pokémon after learning about the Game Boy's link cable, which allowed users to play across consoles in the pre-wireless days. Tajiri thought that collecting and trading creatures would be a fun way to bring players together, and he pitched the game to Nintendo's higher-ups as early as 1990. Nintendo didn't get it, but legendary video game designer Shigeru Miyamoto took an interest in the game and helped Tajiri and Game Freak develop the first two titles, Pokémon Red and Green, over the next few years. In 1996, when Pokémon finally came out, the Game Boy was on the decline, and Nintendo barely marketed the game thanks to its low expectations. In Japan, Pokémon wasn't an immediate hit, but word of mouth quickly spread. By the time Pokémon made its way west, it was already a success. It only got bigger. Now Pokémon is one of Nintendo's most reliable and best-loved franchises. That's not bad for a flop. Not bad at all.